They were once the ultimate billionaire duo, Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, and Bill Gates, the tech visionary. Together, they didn't just dominate their respective worlds of finance and technology, they redefined what global philanthropy could look like. Their joint creation, the Giving Pledge, promised to channel vast fortunes towards solving humanity's most pressing problems. They played bridge together, vacationed together, and shared a friendship that seemed unbreakable. But then something shifted. In the summer of 2019, whispers began to circulate in Wall Street corridors and Silicon Valley boardrooms. Warren Buffett was quietly distancing himself from Bill Gates. At first, the public noticed subtle signs: fewer joint appearances, fewer mentions in interviews, and an eerie silence where once there had been affectionate banter. But as months turned into years, the silence grew deafening. And then came the bombshell. Reports began linking Gates to controversial meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier whose web of influence touched some of the most powerful people in the world. While Gates denied any wrongdoing, the association was enough to tarnish his public image. For Buffett, whose reputation has been built on an almost obsessive cultivation of trust and integrity, the optics were devastating. People close to Buffett say the decision to step away was agonizing. He had known Gates for decades, had trusted him not just as a friend, but as a partner in reshaping philanthropy. But Warren Buffett is a man who plays the long game, and he understood better than anyone that reputations, once damaged, are nearly impossible to fully restore. The press speculated endlessly. Was Buffett protecting his own image? Was there a deeper betrayal behind the scenes? Or was this simply the inevitable end of a friendship between two men whose lives and legacies had taken very different turns? Whatever the reason, the fallout was real. The image of the inseparable billionaire brothers in arms was shattered. Gates carried on his philanthropy without Buffett by his side. Buffett, meanwhile, retreated into his familiar world of Berkshire Hathaway meetings, folksy shareholder letters, and his home in Omaha. They once stood at the very top, but what happened next? Join the Hidden Billionaires to uncover their story. Warren Edward Buffett was born on the 30th of August, 1930, in Omaha, Nebraska, the same Midwestern city he would later make famous as the capital of his investment empire. He was the second of three children, born into a family that wasn't rich but was far from destitute. His father, Howard Buffett, was a stockbroker who later became a U.S. congressman, while his mother, Layla, was a homemaker with a sharp mind and a strict demeanor. The Great Depression was in full swing when Warren was born, and while the Buffetts managed to stay afloat financially, Warren grew up watching friends and neighbors lose everything. Those early years planted a seed. Money was more than just currency. It was security, freedom, and a buffer against the chaos of the world. Even as a child, Buffett's fascination with business was almost uncanny. By the age of 6, he was buying 6 packs of Coca-Cola from his grandfather's grocery store and selling the bottles door to door for a profit. By 11, he had bought his first stock, 3 shares of Citi's Service Preferred, for himself and 3 for his sister Doris. He learned his first hard lesson when the stock dropped from $38 to $27 before climbing back to $40, where he sold. He made a small profit, but later watched it climb to $200. That moment seared into his young mind the importance of patience, a principle that would define his career. Buffett was also an unashamed hustler. At different times in his youth, he delivered newspapers, sold chewing gum, set up pinball machines in barber shops, and even filed tax returns for neighbors. By the time he finished high school, he had saved the modern equivalent of tens of thousands of dollars, a fortune for a teenager in the 1942nd. Despite his early success, Buffett's path wasn't without obstacles. His mother's sharp tongue and volatile temper sometimes made home life tense. He also struggled in school, not academically. He was brilliant with numbers, but socially. His shy and awkward demeanor often set him apart, yet this isolation gave him more time to read, to study markets, and to think deeply about how money moved in the world. When it came time for college, Buffett's first choice was Harvard Business School, but he was rejected. Instead, fate intervened. He enrolled at Columbia Business School, where he studied under Benjamin Graham, the legendary father of value investing. Graham's teachings on finding undervalued companies and investing with a margin of safety would become the bedrock of Buffett's philosophy. It was also at Columbia that Buffett developed a disciplined, almost obsessive approach to research. He read company reports the way some people devour novels, memorizing balance sheets, management histories, and market patterns. Graham saw his potential and briefly hired him at Graham Newman Corp., but Buffett's ambitions were bigger than working for someone else. By the mid-1952nd, he had returned to Omaha and started his own investment partnerships, using other people's money, but always investing alongside them. His honesty, transparency, and consistent returns quickly built a loyal base of investors. These were the first building blocks of what would eventually become the Berkshire Hathaway empire. Buffett's early life was not marked by privilege, but by a unique combination of curiosity, discipline, and a near-religious commitment to living below his means. Even as he began making real money, he drove modest cars, lived in the same Omaha house he bought in 1958, and treated extravagant spending as a dangerous distraction. These roots, frugality, patience, and relentless research would not only make him one of the richest men in the world, but also form the moral compass that shaped every decision he made, including those that would later determine the fate of his friendship with Bill Gates. By the late 1952nd, Warren Buffett was no longer just the kid with a knack for numbers. He was becoming a force in the world of investing. His partnerships consistently beat the market, not through risky bets, but by identifying undervalued companies that everyone else overlooked. Buffett wasn't chasing trends. He was quietly buying the assets that others thought were boring. In 1962, he stumbled upon a failing New England textile company called Berkshire Hathaway. It was cheap, outdated, and seemingly doomed, exactly the kind of situation Buffett loved. He began buying shares aggressively, eventually taking control in 1965. At first, he tried to keep the textile business alive, but when the industry's decline became irreversible, Buffett pivoted. He transformed Berkshire into a holding company, a vehicle for buying other businesses outright or taking significant stakes in them. It was here that Buffett's brilliance truly shone. He acquired companies with strong brands and reliable earnings. See's Candies, Nebraska Furniture Mart, Geico, Dairy Queen, and later, massive stakes in Coca-Cola, American Express, and Apple. He had an almost supernatural ability to see beyond short-term turbulence to the long-term durability of a business. His approach was simple in theory but difficult in practice. Invest in companies you understand, run by people you trust, and hold them for the long haul. As Berkshire grew, so did Buffett's legend. His annual shareholder letters became required reading not just for investors, but for anyone interested in business. He explained complex financial ideas with folksy humor, analogies about baseball, and an unwavering moral framework. Unlike many Wall Street titans, Buffett cultivated an image of humility. The billionaire who still lived in his modest Omaha home, drove his own car, and ordered McDonald's breakfast on the way to work. By the 1982nd and 1992nd, Buffett was a fixture on the Forbes list of the world's richest people. Yet his wealth didn't seem to change his habits. He avoided yachts, private islands, and the trappings of billionaire excess. This modesty, paired with his consistent success, made him a beloved figure in American culture, a rare combination of financial titan and trustworthy neighbor. It was during this period of rising fame that Buffett crossed paths with Bill Gates. The introduction came in 1991 through Gates's mother, Mary, who believed the two men, despite their vastly different industries, had a shared philosophy about success and giving back. Initially, Gates wasn't interested in meeting some guy who picked stocks, but their first conversation lasted hours. They discovered a mutual love of bridge, competitive games, and candid discussions about world problems. Over the years, Buffett and Gates became inseparable in the public eye. They vacationed together, appeared at events side by side, and teased each other in interviews like old friends. In 2006, Buffett made a historic announcement. He would donate the bulk of his fortune to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, marking one of the largest philanthropic commitments in history. Their collaboration soon birthed the Giving Pledge, a campaign urging billionaires to commit at least half their wealth to charitable causes. At the height of their friendship, Buffett and Gates were more than business allies. They were cultural symbols of a new kind of capitalism, one that sought not only to make money, but to deploy it for the greater good. The press adored them, the public trusted them, and for a time it seemed nothing could break their bond. But as Buffett's influence in philanthropy deepened, so did the scrutiny of those around him. He had built his fortune on trust with shareholders, business partners, and the public. Anything that could compromise that trust was not just a personal concern, it was a direct threat to the empire he had spent decades building. That unwavering commitment to reputation would later become the silent force pulling him away from Gates, a decision that would shock the very world they had once reshaped together. By the mid-2010 second, Warren Buffett was more than a billionaire. He was a brand, a living embodiment of financial wisdom and ethical investing. His every move was analyzed by investors, regulators, and the media. This visibility brought immense influence, but it also meant that any association, any misstep, even by a close friend, could ripple back to him in ways that were impossible to control. For years, Buffett's partnership with Bill Gates had been one of the most celebrated alliances in modern business history. They had not only reshaped philanthropy, but had shown the world that the richest men alive could also be the most generous. Together, they convinced other billionaires to part with fortunes they had once guarded like treasure. But in 2019, quiet murmurs began to break the illusion. News reports revealed Gates's repeated meetings with Jeffrey Epstein, the disgraced financier and convicted sex offender. While Gates denied any deep connection and insisted the meetings were solely about philanthropy, the optics were disastrous. Every new headline linking Gates to Epstein ignited a firestorm on social media and in the press. For Buffett, whose personal brand revolved around trust and clean dealings, the situation was perilous. He had spent decades avoiding even the faintest whiff of scandal, and here was his closest philanthropic partner suddenly at the center of a global controversy. People began asking questions. Why wasn't Buffett speaking out? Did he know more than he was letting on? Would he continue to tie his legacy to a man now facing relentless public scrutiny? Behind the scenes, insiders say the friendship began to cool. The pair stopped appearing together at high-profile events. Buffett grew more reserved when asked about Gates in interviews, often deflecting or giving brief, non-committal responses. While there was no public declaration of a split, the absence was deafening. The Giving Pledge continued, but without the same joint enthusiasm that had once defined it. It wasn't just the Epstein scandal. By this time, Gates was also embroiled in personal upheaval. His divorce from Melinda French Gates was one of the most high-profile marital breakdowns in modern history. With court filings, media leaks, and speculation swirling, the Gates brand was no longer the pristine image it had once been. For Buffett, who had always guarded his own personal life fiercely, this constant drama was an unwelcome spotlight. The toll on Buffett was twofold. Personally, he was watching a decades-long friendship erode under the weight of public pressure and private disappointment. Professionally, he had to navigate the tricky territory of maintaining his philanthropic commitments without letting them drag his own reputation into controversy. Berkshire Hathaway shareholders, always fiercely loyal, still expected him to uphold the unshakable trust that had made him their leader for so long. When asked about the situation, Buffett never attacked Gates. That wasn't his style. But in business circles, it became clear that his once boundless public endorsement of Gates had turned into a cautious distance. The photographs of them laughing over a bridge game became relics of another era. The man who had built an empire on patience, loyalty, and integrity had faced a test that couldn't be solved by numbers on a balance sheet. He had to choose between personal loyalty to a friend and protecting the very foundation of his public trust. In the end, he chose the latter, and the friendship, at least in its old form, quietly dissolved. For the public, the break was almost surreal. Two men who had once stood together as icons of benevolent capitalism were now walking separate paths, their legacy together forever altered by the storms of fame, scandal, and human frailty. After the storm of scandal and public scrutiny, Warren Buffett retreated into what many called his Omaha sanctuary. Unlike many billionaires who seek the spotlight, Buffett doubled down on his familiar rhythms: Berkshire Hathaway's annual shareholder meetings, his handwritten letters, and the simple pleasures of Midwestern life. The world watched closely, expecting perhaps a dramatic comeback or a full-throated defense of his legacy intertwined with Bill Gates. But Buffett remained characteristically silent on the personal fallout, choosing instead to focus on business and philanthropy with quiet determination. While Gates' public life became more turbulent, Buffett's remained remarkably stable. Berkshire Hathaway continued to thrive under his leadership, and he maintained his reputation as one of the world's most successful and trustworthy investors. His company's stock price rose steadily, and new generations of investors looked to his disciplined approach as a beacon in turbulent markets. Philanthropically, Buffett upheld his commitment to giving away the bulk of his fortune, largely through the Gates Foundation. Yet, he increasingly appeared to take a more cautious approach, working behind the scenes rather than as a public partner. His rare interviews reflected a man less concerned with headlines and more focused on the slow, steady work of making a difference. In recent years, Buffett has also embraced new ventures, such as increased investments in technology companies like Apple, signaling an evolution in his traditional investment style. He acknowledged the changing landscape but remained true to his core principles: understanding what you invest in, trusting management, and holding for the long term. Surprisingly to some, Buffett has also deepened his commitment to family and personal reflection. Though famously private, those close to him say he treasures his time with children and grandchildren, often sharing lessons not about money but about character, patience, and integrity. Despite the fractured friendship with Gates, Buffett's life after the storm reveals a man who values consistency over chaos, substance over spectacle. The billion-dollar headlines may fade, but his grounded lifestyle and methodical mindset continue to define his legacy. Warren Buffett's story is not just about billions or boardrooms. It's also deeply rooted in family, a theme often overshadowed by his public persona. Though his name is synonymous with finance, Buffett has always maintained a private, almost old-fashioned approach to family life. Buffett married Susan Thompson in 1952, a partnership that lasted until her death in 2004. Their relationship was complex. Susan was known for her outgoing and artistic spirit, in contrast to Warren's reserved nature. Despite periods of separation, they remained close until her passing. In 2006, Buffett married Astrid Menks, who has been by his side ever since, supporting him quietly from the wings. He has 3 children: Susan, Howard, and Peter. Unlike their father, none have become billionaires, but each has carved out their own path, often far from the spotlight. Buffett famously said he didn't want to leave a trust fund large enough that it would ruin their lives, reflecting his belief that wealth should not be an excuse for complacency. This philosophy has influenced how he structures his legacy. The bulk of his fortune is pledged to philanthropy rather than inheritance, ensuring that his family grows up with a sense of responsibility rather than entitlement. His children have engaged in charitable activities, but have largely stayed clear of Berkshire Hathaway's management, leaving the company in the hands of professional executives and trusted successors. In recent years, Buffett has taken an active role in grooming the next generation of leadership at Berkshire Hathaway. He has praised executives like Greg Abel, who is widely expected to succeed him as CEO. Yet, despite preparing for transition, Buffett remains deeply involved, his steady hand guiding the company through both boom and crisis. His family life, though private, surprises many with its warmth. Reports describe Buffett as a grandfather who is patient, witty, and full of life lessons, often imparting wisdom not just on investing, but on humility, kindness, and perseverance. This personal side of Buffett rounds out the image of a man whose success is measured not just in dollars, but in the values he hopes to pass on. Warren Buffett's legacy is one that transcends numbers and spreadsheets. He revolutionized investing by proving that patience, discipline, and a clear moral compass could build one of the greatest fortunes in history without succumbing to reckless speculation or greed. Buffett's approach to value investing forever changed Wall Street's mindset. Before him, investing was often a gamble or a game of market timing. After him, it became a disciplined science, one grounded in fundamental analysis and ethical stewardship. His annual letters to Berkshire Hathaway shareholders are still studied in business schools worldwide, not only for their financial insights, but also for their candid reflections on leadership, risk, and human nature. Beyond finance, Buffett reshaped the culture of philanthropy. His decision to pledge over 99% of his fortune to charity, mainly through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, set a new standard for billionaire giving. The Giving Pledge, co-founded with Bill Gates, has encouraged over 200 billionaires to commit to donating the majority of their wealth, dramatically shifting expectations of the ultra-rich. Buffett's influence extends beyond markets and money. He is seen as an icon of integrity in an industry often plagued by scandal. His simple lifestyle, straightforward communication, and unwavering principles have made him a symbol of trustworthiness and humility. However, his fractured friendship with Bill Gates adds complexity to this legacy. It serves as a cautionary tale about the fragile nature of trust, even among giants. It also highlights how public scrutiny and personal choices can reshape lifelong bonds and alter the course of philanthropic missions. In the decades since Buffett's rise, experts and media alike have come to view him as both an inspirational figure and a living legend. Some call him the Sage of Omaha, while others remind us that his story is also a lesson in the costs of fame and the importance of aligning personal values with public actions. Universities and institutes study his methods, and countless investors try to emulate his success, but few can match his combination of intellect, humility, and ethical rigor. In the end, Warren Buffett's greatest legacy may be that he proved immense wealth could be amassed and wielded responsibly, an ideal that still inspires and challenges the richest generation today. Warren Buffett's life story is a testament to timeless values: patience, discipline, humility, and integrity. From a boy in Depression-era Omaha to one of the richest men in the world, he has shown that success need not come at the cost of character. Yet, his fractured friendship with Bill Gates reminds us that even the most powerful bonds can be tested by the pressures of fame, controversy, and human complexity. Buffett's journey teaches us that ambition and fortune carry heavy burdens, not just financial, but moral and personal. It reveals how the price of public trust can be steep, forcing difficult choices between loyalty and reputation. His decision to quietly distance himself from Gates amid scandal was not just about business, it was about preserving a legacy built on decades of unwavering principles. In the end, Buffett's story is both inspirational and cautionary. It challenges us to think deeply about what we value most: wealth, friendship, or integrity. It urges us to remember that behind the headlines and billions lie human lives, fragile relationships, and the consequences of choices made under the world's watchful eye. If you found this story eye-opening, subscribe and stay tuned for more hidden truths from the world's richest.